Hi, my name is Tammy Trappier Bentley, and I am your co-host for On Second Thought with William Wagner. And I am here at the edge of Zion National Park with the beautiful view of Canyon Overlook.
Welcome to On Second Thought. I'm William Wagner, your host. We got a great show for you tonight. With me today, here in the studio, is Charlie Sprinkle. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Charlie, do you have a driver's license?
No, sir, I haven't. I don't drive commercially.
You don't drive commercially, I see. So you don't need a driver's license?
If you're not being paid, there's no need for a driver's license.
So if I was getting paid to haul goods and services, or I was a taxi driver,
you would have to have a driver's license. That's commerce.
That's commerce. But you don't drive in commerce, so you haven't had a driver's license for how many years, Charlie?
37 years.
What happens, Charlie, when the police pull you over and they think you're speeding or you didn't signal?
Well, now they just shake their finger at me or tell me to have a nice day.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Well, let's see. As a cop, I pull up, I say, may I see your driver's license, please?
I don't have one.
Why don't you have one? You're driving a car.
I don't want one, and I'm not driving. I'm traveling.
I see. Well, what if I just take you to jail?
Fine with me. But we'll be hooked to the hip. We'll be hooked at the hip for the next 5 years in federal court.
In federal court. So you're going to sue me, the police officer, if I take you to jail because you don't have a driver's license?
Yes, sir.
I think the judge will rule in my favor.
I don't think so.
Oh, so that's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
And you had one of those cases, Charlie, didn't you?
I filed suit in 1975 against 16 state officials, including Governor Reagan and all of their wives.
And all of their wives?
Yes, sir. When the officer pulls his red lights on you, he's declaring an emergency. That's a felony when there is no emergency. So he's already violated his job oath of office when he turns his red lights on to stop you. And then in my case, if he interferes with my right to travel, he's violating the Constitution of the United States.
Wow.
He becomes an imposter in the office of, he becomes imposter in his office. And therefore he's taking his wages under false pretenses, and that's fraud.
And you've taken people to court?
Yes, sir.
Did Mrs. Reagan like being served?
Yes, sir. We served her as she was backing out of her driveway in the limousine.
Did she like it when they served her?
She was having a hissy fit. As a matter of fact, the wives didn't like being charged with fraud for something their husbands had done.
So why did you name Mrs. Reagan? I mean, even Reagan didn't pull you over, and he didn't hire the CHP officer.
I wrote Mr. Reagan a letter and requesting him to protect me from the conspiracy to violate my rights.
And did he protect you?
No, he refused in writing.
Oh.
So he violated his oath of office. He became an imposter in the governor's office, and his wife was same as driving a getaway car for a bank robber. She's accessory after the fact.
Wow.
And they tried to get that dismissed in federal court 3 different times, and they failed all 3 times. And then all they could do then was make a deal.
Wow. I got to take my hat off to you, Charlie, because I don't think I've talked to anybody that's ever sued a governor and his wife and won. Did they pay you money, or what? How did that resolve?
But they couldn't get the case dismissed out of the federal court, so they sent a black limousine down to my house. 2 guys got out of the back doors of the car, dressed in very dark suits and sunglasses, and came to my door. Of course, I had a rifle set over the door because I was expecting to be assassinated over this deal.
Yeah.
I was only 35 years old, and I was the only one in California at the time fighting a driver's license. So I expected to be found face down in a ditch someplace, and so I was well armed. Anyway, they came to the door, and they said, "Mr. Sprinkle, we can assure you that you will have full run of the road if you do not pursue the lawsuit any further. I said, fine. I'll take that under advisement, and we'll see what happens. And after another few words, they decided to get in their car and go home, or wherever they came from. So I immediately went out and got into my yellow sports car and went out onto the highway and found me a highway patrolman, and they was doing 65 at the time. It was the speed limit. And I cranked my little yellow car up to about 90 miles an hour, went by them blowing my air horns. And of course they pursued me immediately.
Yeah, I would expect that, Charlie, yeah.
And I pulled off the side of the road, and I said, what can I do for you? And he says, what are you doing? I said, I was doing about 90. He said, what's your name? You got a driver's license? No. Oh. What's your name? My name's Charlie Sprinkle. Well, Mr. Sprinkle, we just stopped to see if we could be of any assistance to you. I said, well, no, I think I can get along all right by myself. And he said, well, have a nice day. So I left him in a cloud of dust.
Oh, boy. And they didn't say anything about the fact you admitted you were doing 90 in a 65 zone?
No.
They didn't say a word about it.
Yeah, I've been told I'd be left alone if I didn't pursue the suit.
So someone put the word out, and you let the Reagans off the suit, and you're free to go.
So I just did not pursue it. I can reinstitute it tomorrow if I want to. Refile for $25.
How long were you in federal court before this little incident took place?
About 4 or 5 months. It took a month for him to default, and I went to the judge. He asked for a default judgment. But at that time, I hadn't spent enough time in the law library, and I didn't know about defaults. Now, when the judge told me I had to have a default wrote up for him to sign, I said, oh, I'll be back in a little while. I'm in L.A. with no driver's license, no form of identification at all. And in order to get a default done, you have to have it notarized and certified, and I had to have some kind of identification. But down in L.A., that's pretty easy to get done without identification. So in the space of 3 hours, I was back in his office with the default. In the meantime, he had called somebody in Sacramento, and they had called a law firm in L.A. and typed up some kind of paper and got in line ahead of me at the court clerk's office and filed an answer, what they called an answer. So by the time I got back to the judge, he says, they filed an answer ahead of you, so you don't get to default. I said, okay, well, I have to take them to court, and off I went. We came back. The lawyer they had sent down to L.A. said it was working for a private company. The officials could not use government lawyers because I filed a suit against them in their personal capacity and not their office.
Oh.
So it cost them all about $10,000 to get themselves and their wives an attorney to come down to the L.A. and try to get them out of the suit. And the lawyer that they sent down was a young fellow just out of law school and just got his bar degree and went to work for a big firm with all the grand visions of being promoted up through the ranks. And they told him, he said, you shouldn't have any trouble with this backhoe operator. He's only 35 and he's dropped out of the 9th grade. I mean, you shouldn't have any trouble getting him out of federal court, no problem. Well, on his 3rd trip, he was crying big crocodile tears because the judge found against him. And they had sent a special judge in for my case. So when the judge had finished with my case, he stood up and started shaking his papers up and getting them all ready to go. And the attorney for the judges stood up and way over on the other side of the courtroom. The place was full of lawyers and plaintiffs and defendants, whatever they were. And the lawyer hollers across the courtroom, Mr. Sprinkle, he says, I would like to speak to you after the judge has left the courtroom. I said, why, Mr. Leicester, what is it you have to say to me that you don't want the judge to hear? And the lawyer hollers across the courtroom, Mr. Sprinkle, he says, I would like to speak to you after the judge has left the courtroom. I said, why, Mr. Leicester, what is it you have to say to me that you don't want the judge to hear? So he comes out in the hall. I ignored him. I just went on about my business and went out in the hall. He came out and put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, Mr. Sprinkle, he says, things hasn't been the same around the house since the lawsuit struck. He said, could you dismiss dismiss the wives from this case? I said, Mr. Leicester, I'll take it under advisement and notify you by mail. He says, well, you're just being vindictive. I said, no, sir, Mr. Leicester. I said, it's like this. When I got that citation, my girlfriend left me. My number 1 girlfriend left me. My number 2 girlfriend left me. My number 3 girlfriend will barely talk to me anymore. My goldfish died and my cat's got diarrhea. I said, you think it upsets your household? It upsets my household too. So, see you in court.
I take my hat off to you, Charlie. that is, and that's a true story. And you really don't have a driver's license, do you?
No, sir.
And you brought with you some citations just to prove to people, if you think Charlie's making this up. Let's see if we can get this on the board over here. You've got a thing here.
That right?
Not guilty, not guilty, dismissed, dismissed, dismissed from January 10th of 03. It looks like one is you're an unlicensed driver violating 853.7 PC. It's dismissed. The fine was going to be $1,000.
That was for the failure to appear.
Oh, that was for the failure to appear. No, the unlicensed drivers was $271. Then they had a failure to appear on a citation, 12500 DVC, and they wanted $104 for that. I don't know if you can see it over here, but
Can you read those charges?
I can.
The first one is
Unlicensed driver.
The second one is failure to appear. Now, they didn't send me my courtesy notice within 10 days of the court trial, so I had my wife call the courthouse and ask about the court date. And the court clerk told my wife that the officer had made a mistake on the date and that they had set the date for a day that the court was going to be closed because of a national holiday, and that they was going to have to change the dates for my court appearance, and they would notify us. So my wife said, well, what if we don't hear anything from you? The court clerk said, well, if you don't hear anything from us, just don't worry about it. Okay. 6 months later, cops rolled up in front of my house and got a $5,000 warrant for my arrest. There was no holiday that day. The court knew I was going to fight the case, and they wanted to jack up the ante. That's what they do.
So they lied to you.
They lie.
Our government employees, our public servants lied to you, Charlie.
Yes, they did. It ain't the first time.
Naughty, naughty, you guys. Naughty, naughty. You shouldn't lie to Charlie, because Charlie takes it kind of bad.
Pretty serious.
So what did you do to him, Charlie?
Well, this bunch I didn't do anything with, was because they didn't convict me.
Yeah, well, yeah, they dismissed everything. You were arrested April 27th, unlicensed driver. Then May 24th of 02, they said failure to appear on citation, want $1,000 for that. And then they had you for a licensed driver out of classification.
Yeah. Can you put those two together? They don't work.
Yeah, they don't work. I think they were just throwing mud at you, Charlie, and saying, let's just scare him.
Not only that, the unlicensed driver was added 4 months after the failure to appear summons or the warrant was served, which was a year after the first offense. Look at the dates. Yeah,
and January 10th of 03 dismissed, January 10th of 03 dismissed, and the last one was August 12th of 03. Now, that's a long time before they gave up on that $104.
Well, I was running from the law for 6 months. I was playing hide and seek out in the open.
I think you're the CHP's worst nightmare, Charlie.
The CHP I have no trouble with. It was the sheriffs that did that.
Oh, these were the sheriffs that did.
And he was laying for me.
He was.
Yeah, he didn't know how to spell my name, but he had heard it a lot.
And he was going to make a test case out of you, huh?
Well, he told me in the barber shop when I told him what I did to highway patrolmen, that if he seen me driving on the road, he would give me a citation. And he did. And I told him when he said that in the barbershop, I said, go ahead. You want to go to court with me? Fine. And he did. I took him to court.
Did he like going to court?
Oh, no. He didn't show up.
He didn't
No.
show up?
And he was under subpoena.
Under subpoena, and
Yeah.
he didn't show up.
And I asked the judge, I said, we'll put out an arrest warrant for him. He's under subpoena to be here today, and you're wasting my valuable time, so go get him. And they said, no, we'll give him another month. I said, oh, you pansy.
You told the judge, was that Judge Curtis?
Yeah.
You told him
Well, I
he's
don't know. That none of them judges are right. That Rebecca gal was the assistant DA.
Yeah, Rebecca Batoff.
When this case was
Batoff?
when this case was dismissed, she was in New York.
They just make it up as they go along, don't they, Charlie?
Anything they want.
Yeah.
They just make it up.
Our government's out of control. And I'm happy to see, Charlie, a man like you that teaches these police officers and sheriff's deputies a lesson once in a while. Because most of us just bend over and pay the fine because we don't want to take time off to go fight in court.
I hear it all the time. When I'm on the road and they see me out there on the road, I'm invisible. But if I walk in a coffee shop where there's 4 or 5 or 2 or 3 of them, they say, "Hi, Charlie, how you doing?" And I go, "Doing fine, guys. Not a problem." I've had sheriffs sit in my living room and tell me they would not arrest me.
Wow. So what would you recommend people do? Tear up their driver's license if they got
Oh,
one?
no. No. Educate yourself and find out when you need one and when you don't.
Well, you need one if you're working as a taxi driver.
If you're a taxi driver, a bus driver, a truck driver, or if grandma's paying you $20 to take her shopping, you need a driver's license. But if you're not getting paid for going down the road, you're traveling for pleasure. That's the meaning of liberty.
So it's about liberty.
Liberty is second behind life in the Constitution.
Right.
We're guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They will let you get away with pursuing happiness before they give you the liberty.
I like you, Charlie. I think you're right. We do just sort of give in too often. If somebody like you doesn't stand up once in a while, I think we'd all be wearing leg bracelets.
We are. It's called contract. Licensing. Licensing is a method of the government enslaving us. Anytime you accept a license, you give up freedoms.
I just talked to an attorney last week, and he said, "Yep, I know the judge violated the law. I know the prosecutor falsified the evidence," or actually it was county counsel.
Same thing there.
County counsel falsified evidence. I know that this woman had a CPS worker walk up to her door, grab her child right from the doorway, and say, "I'm taking it. You've been reported as spanking your child or something." And the woman said had never spanked her child ever in her life, and certainly didn't do it in the middle of the street like the CPS report said she was beating her with a 2x4 in the middle of the street. Well, the judge sees that and he says, but it hadn't even gone to a judge yet. That's the funny part. They took the kid, and a month later she gets a hearing, and they lose. And I said to the attorney, "Well, if you knew all this, why didn't you appeal?" He says, "I don't want to lose my license."
That's right.
He didn't want to lose his license, so he let a child be taken under false statements by a CPS worker who didn't even notarize it under penalty of perjury.
There's a $5,000 reward to that CPS worker for taking that child.
Isn't that awful?
And if it's a baby, it's $10,000.
Well, they took a baby 1 day old right here out of the Marion Hospital. Her name was Angel Powers. Betty Powers was the mother. Betty goes to church 4 times a week. She's been sober for 30 years since she stopped being a teenager. Wonderful gal. And they took her baby 1 day old based on the fact that she had some trouble when she was a juvenile. That should have never, even 30 years later, they steal her baby, her only baby daughter.
Directly from attorneys who appear before him in court every day and has breached the duty to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Any attorney whose career is balanced on the rulings of a judge and whose client's future is in the hands of that judge should not be pressured to give that judge political favors.
Thank you.
So you've done, Betty, everything that you can physically do to comply. You proved you're not homeless, so Santa Barbara Child Protective Services lied, correct? And the liar's name was?
Katie Hartman.
Katie Hartman was the liar who gets paid with tax dollars to steal your baby under color of law.
That's true.
Am I overemphasizing?
No, it's the truth.
And she is heartbroken today. And Judge Garcia and you lesbian judge Barbara Beck, you wannabe Superior Court or Supreme Court judge, you're never going to get there, Barbara. You belong in jail. These judges conspired to steal this baby, but first the CPS worker, and I think one was named Karen Wagner, no relation to me, snatched that baby, in my opinion, totally illegally. And in my opinion, Beck should be in jail, the CPS worker should be in jail. Garcia, who just got elected as a real judge for the first time after being a wannabe judge, a commissioner for 12 years. But I think Garcia said in the early paperwork, if she's not schizophrenic, if she's not homeless, if she doesn't have drug issues in her blood, I want her to get her baby back. Then the CPS workers snuck in the allegedly lesbian Barbara Beck judge, who I think I made a reference to her and somebody named Sarah some years ago on a show, and then Barbara decided she didn't want to run for re-election anymore. Then they brought her back as a standby judge from retirement, so she collects double pay. This system needs to change, people, and only you can make a change. We got some judges coming up right now for election. Let me give you a heads up on who's coming up here. Charlie, you've done a wonderful service by not having a driver's license and making those guys regret it. We have a judge election coming up. 4 are running right here in Santa Barbara County. They're county-wide offices. Do your own research. Find out if they are porn addicts, gay pedophiles, or drunk, or you might find yourself in front of a bad judge someday. Now is the time. Don't accept media sound bites. Do your own research. Remember that the former district attorney assistant, Charles Bealey, was caught viewing porn on his office, that's the district attorney's office, business computer in 2002, and he was running against our lesbian incumbent judge, Diana Hall. What a great choice. A guy that's breaking the law by using government property for personal pleasure in the business office of the district attorney of Santa Barbara versus a lesbian named, and she was a very pretty lesbian, Diana Hall, who got caught after a fight with her lover. If I'm quoting the Slanted Mary Times correctly, she had a argument with her lover whose name was, and I'm not joking, Deetra Dykeman. Then Judge Hall went driving away after she had had way too many and got pulled over by an alert sheriff's deputy who had been called because there was an issue of whether someone had called 911 and maybe somebody forced her to hang up the phone or whatever. But they pulled her over. The bottom line was our beautiful lesbian judge, Dinah Hall, bye-bye. She's not here anymore. I went to her appeal down in Ventura when she appealed some things and made her statement. I think she was a bad judge anyway, regardless of this incident, regardless of her, and I watched her in court quite a few times. I think she was just a bad jurist. She didn't know the law, and she pulled some boners that I think should have been overturned. But you got 4 people to choose from here, people. And don't just read the voter's guide. You know, the voter's guide comes up, and of course, they're going to say all nice things, but ask yourself other questions. Go find out about these guys. Look. Make sure you are giving better choices for a judge. You've got Lynn S. Cutler, another assistant DA. You've got Kevin Reddy, who ran last time, and we got footage of Kevin Reddy, who ran last time against Garcia. He's county council. He's from the county council. those are the people they send to steal babies after they've already illegally kidnapped them, or children. You know, I got to think about that. And I've asked Kevin Reddy to come back on the show after he ran last time, and he's just sort of never found his way back here. But he's invited, as all the candidates are. Which is the office that helps CPS kidnap children for profits and for job security? Then you've got this John McKinnon, a senior county prosecutor under Tom Sneddon. Excuse me, wasn't Tom Sneddon the one that misrepresented when Fingerprints got on a certain girly magazine and tried to misrepresent the facts? In other words, he concocted false evidence in the Michael Jackson trial? So this John McKinnon was a senior county prosecutor under Tom Sneddon, that guy that should have gone to jail instead of to a fat retirement. So you've got all these people running. Don't just take it from, you know, it says says McKinnon's running. Oh, and then there's Jed Beebe. I forgot to mention Jed Beebe, private attorney. But just don't take what they put in here. Go ask questions. Find out. All right, enough of that. Now, I have to give you Gary Zerman, attorney at law. He's going to have a discussion here about some really bad judges, and we'll be back.
Did you hear about, I think it's Judge Klein down here in Southern
Oh, exactly,
California?
yes, I followed it. He's been indicted for having child pornography, and then I believe a young man was stepped for. He's now an adult, but while he was, I believe, a young teenager, 13 or 14, that the judge had approached him and sexually molested him. And what's astounding is he's still on the ticket trying to get reelected. And what's even more astonishing is that I believe 20 of his colleagues came out and endorsed him.
20 colleagues endorsed Judge Klein, even though he's indicted?
Knowing this, and then in fact also when they went in and searched his computer, both home and in the office, they found child porn there.